Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, back fresh from our little vacation. The Horner family's been racing over at Baker City with both Wyatt Horner and Garrett Horner, both successfully winning their categories there at Baker City. So now it's time to go back to work because we're 9 days away from the 25 Tour de France. Visma Bike is the team I'd like to talk about today on Beyond the Coverage because with their 8-rider listed up there and posted for the 25 Tour de France, we know exactly who they got star-studded to head up the 25 Tour de France, and it's none other than, of course, Jonas Vingegaard being their #1 star rider. Now, when I look at this list and we see 8 riders, and we see Simon Yates, we see Jorgensen, the American rider, and the second American, Sepp Kuss on the team, we look at those 4 riders as being their 4 climbers, and then you start dropping down and you see there's Wout Van Aert. What is the big guy's form and what can he deliver at this year's 25 Tour de France? It's a big question mark. You go beyond Wout Van Aert when you see Thies Benoot there. You see my man Victor Campenaerts. He's on the show there for Visma Bike. And Edoardo Affini, the main lead-out guy for Olaf Koy at the Giro d'Italia that helped them wrap up stage 21 of the Giro. Well, that is their last guy that's going to be there that try to help Wout Van Aert leading him out. So, when I look at this 8 roster, what do I see about it? First off, they might not win anything. Oh, you guys are looking at me and you're going, Chris, come on, this is a star-studded team. They just got done winning the Giro with Simon Yates, right? Remember stage 20, Col de Finestra? Simon Yates delivered a blow when he went solo up the road, and the big guy, Wout Van Aert, was waiting for him over the top. That dragged them the final kilometers all the way in the finish to wrap up the 25 Giro d'Italia for the first Grand Tour win of the 25 season. That means if Jonas Vingegaard can go on good form, and if he can beat Tadej Pogacar, Primož Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, if he can beat those 3 first-page riders at the 25 Tour de France, they can continue a streak here at the 25 season of going back-to-back in Grand Tours with the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. But can they do it? I'm talking about they might not even win anything here at the 25 season. Why am I saying that then? Okay, let's go deeper into their 25 season and see exactly what Jonas Vingegaard has done with his top form, if he's even reached his top form. We look at the beginning of the year at Algarve. All right, he goes up to the first mountain stage. He gets beat there by UAE team members. He has to win Algarve in the individual time trial where he wins the stage and wins the general classification, beats Wout Van Aert, who went second on the individual time trial last stage of Algarve. That was showing us signs that Wout Van Aert's form seemed to be coming back up, but then the big guy's form dropped when he got into the classics and didn't come as high as he wanted. But let's stay on Jonas Vingegaard, who went later into Paris-Nice. Okay, at Paris-Nice, we see him on the first real mountain stage there, gets beat by Almeida that comes back at the last minute, beats him to the line, and wins that stage. Then we see, of course, Jonas Vingegaard crashes out of Paris-Nice, and that leaves them all the way with no races until we get all the way into Dauphiné. Dauphiné, we go into stage 1. He attacked Tadej Pogacar on stage 1, lit it up, and then worked with the Slovenian. Okay, he didn't work all the way into the finish, but he worked with the Slovenian, he worked with Remco Evenepoel, he worked with Mathieu van der Poel, then lost the stage to Tadej Pogacar where Jonas Vingegaard got second on the stage. That showed that his form was coming, and it got us all excited, especially all the way up into stage 4, where we saw Remco Evenepoel win the individual time trial, and Jonas Vingegaard only lose 20 seconds to Remco Evenepoel, but more importantly, he put time into Tadej Pogacar, the #1 favorite to win the Tour de France in 2025. So, when you look after stage 4, though, and you combine that Jonas Vingegaard got beat at Algarve on summit climbs, won the time trial, then crashed out of Paris-Nice, but before he crashed out of Paris-Nice, got beat by UAE team members on uphill finishes by riders not named Tadej Pogacar. Then you go into Dauphiné, and you see where tactically he made a mistake on stage 1. He time trials solid on stage 4, but then we get into stages 6, 7, and 8, and we see mistakes from Visma Bike where they're drilling it on the front, even though UAE team members were going to continue to drive it on stage 6. Visma Bike took over the front of the peloton there, and then Tadej Pogacar made everybody pay as he put the sword to everybody wearing a yellow jersey there and put himself back into the race leader's yellow jersey to win stage 6 and put over a minute's time into Jonas Vingegaard. Now, the biggest thing, though, is not the minute that Tadej Pogacar put into Jonas. It's that on those next three mountain stages, 6, 7, and 8, that Jonas Vingegaard always had other riders not named Tadej Pogačar close to him. So Tadej Pogačar is up the road winning 6 and winning 7, but Lipovic was always close to Jonas Vingegaard, which tells us that his form was never as high as we have seen in 2024. Never has it reached it in 2025, his 2024 level, where he soloed at stage races such as Trino Adriatico or Au Grand Camino, or even at the Tour de France when he dropped everyone except for Tadej Pogačar and was able to win stage 11 at the Tour de France. Jonas Vingegaard has not had that form at all throughout the 25 season. So when we start the 25 Tour de France, there's a big question mark you have to be asking yourself about Visma Lease Bike, Jonas Vingegaard and his team and their team tactics. If we go back into Dauphiné again, I'll tell you for sure that they should have used Jorgensen, Sepp Kuss, and Ben Tullet, who was riding fantastic there at Dauphiné, as riders that could win stages, especially after the tactical mistake that they did on stage 6 that I already explained here. Once they saw Tadej Pogačar was that good, they should have switched to Jonas Vingegaard following Tadej Pogačar throughout stages 7 and 8, and then trying to win stages with Jorgensen, Ben Tullet, and Sepp Kuss in the breakaway going up the road. And hopefully Jorgensen could pull out a win, because the American rider Jorgensen, who won Paris-Nice back-to-back 24 and 25, has always been racing at the level that you would expect. So he's been racing good. But if we start the 25 season and Jonas is not at his best form, and Tadej Pogačar still is, Primož Roglič has come up to his best, Remco Evenepoel doesn't have those days without power, then all of a sudden, Visma Lease Bike are in big time troubles, because Jonas Vingegaard won't be able to drop Tadej Pogačar. And if they're using the whole team to race for him, they won't even be able to come out of the 25 season without a stage victory. Now, when they listed their rider, roster for the 25 season, they said, of course, they're going to go for stage wins. So what does that mean? That means they're looking over at the big guy, Wout Van Aert. Now, if we dissect Wout Van Aert's season, okay, Algarve, like I said, went second in individual time trial. He had a solid ride, but then he went into the classics where top 5s was more or less what he was getting throughout the classic spring season, when of course we're talking about the early races like Paris-Roubaix, Amstel Gold, and Brabantse-Pijl, top 5 results. It wasn't the winning season that Wout Van Aert wanted. He left the classics. He went over to the Giro. He started the Giro 6, so he started a little bit rough, but then went into stage 9, Strada Bianche stage of the Giro. He won that stage from Del Toro, and that was a fantastic win, and then later went on to help Olaf Koy win 2 stages, and the final stage 21 was a remarkable lead out from Wout Van Aert. But on top of that, stage 20, Col de Finestère, was the day that Wout Van Aert was up the road over the Col de Finestère and helped Simon Yates wrap up the Giro d'Italia for Visma Lease Bike. But when you still look at his form, even after that remarkable Giro, and you know I love the big guy, that's why I got him number 5 on my first page. But even after the form we see from Wout Van Aert, we know that he's not on his top form. That means Visma Lease Bikes with Jonas Vingegaard and Wout Van Aert, first page riders. Number 3 on my list, number 5 on my list, 2 riders, first page, from the same team, have not reached their best form when we compare it to years past. Wout's not on his best form, which means when we look at the Tour de France, especially when we look at the first 9 stages, there's multiple stages in there that Wout Van Aert can win if he has 2022 Tour de France type form. If he can go in there and win the field sprints, he can win stage 1, put himself in the race leader's jersey. If he doesn't have the speed to beat riders like Tim Miller from Soudal Quickstep, if he can't beat Johnny Milan from Lidl Trek, well then he can go into stages 2, 4, go into the individual time trial stages, go into stage 6. He could go into stages 7, 8, and 9 if he has the 22 Tour de France form and win any stage throughout the first 9 days of the Tour de France. That's how remarkable Wout Van Aert's form was at the 22 Tour de France that season. But we haven't seen that type form. So again, Visma Lease Bike, 2 first page riders, not on their best form in 2025 season so far this year. Can they find it in July? If they both find it, they could win everything at the Tour de France, including the overall classification. Well, if you can get around Tadej Pogačar, that is. But it's possible. We've seen it done not once, but 2 times from Jonas Vingegaard. So we know it's possible. They could win everything with Jonas, and they could win everything individual stages with Wout, and he could pull on remarkable stuff, but we have not seen that in the 25 season. So let's go further down. Let's look at Simon Yates, who's got to be the #1 Super Domestique climber for Jonas Vingegaard right now when the Tour de France starts. Or would he be? Maybe it would be Jorgensen, but let's pretend it's Simon Yates. Let's look at the season of the 25 season so far for Simon Yates, who didn't go so well when we're talking about Tirreno Adriatico and when we're talking about Catalonia. We're talking top 15, top 10 results at those two races. Comes into the Giro and starts quietly following the race leaders, and then comes into stage 20, and tactically he knows he's not the best climber or the best rider at the Giro d'Italia. He's the third best, and he's sitting third on general classification. But he has Del Toro from UAE Team Emirates and Richard Carapaz sitting in front of him. Those two riders cancel each other out on Col de Finestre. Simon Yates pulled on a tactical masterpiece when he bridged across early on the Col de Finestre, threw in 4 attacks, and it was the 4th attack that got him away from Richard Carapaz with tactics, with Richard Carapaz wanting to play against Del Toro. Fantastic job, Richard Carapaz. Tip of the hat. It was a beautiful tactical race. It just did not go your way. That's the way it is. So we go back into Simon Yates because he knew he had to get away from those two riders, and because I believe he knew they would play a tactical game. He attacked multiple times. He got up the road, and because Visma Lease Bike had Wout Van Aert up the road, they sealed the deal for the victory for Simon Yates. But I don't believe he was the best climber, which leaves us in another dilemma again when you're looking at Visma Lease Bike. 3 riders. Jonas Vingegaard not on his best, Wout Van Aert not on his best, and Simon Yates, I don't even believe that was his best at the Giro. I believe he came really good, and I believe we could be seeing a stepping stone from the 25 Giro into the 25 Tour de France. That's why I believe he is the main lieutenant there to Jonas Vingegaard, but the director sportifs of Visma Lease Bike have to know whether or not if Jonas's form has continued to go up and if his power numbers read like we saw last season in 2024 and especially in 2023 when he was remarkable and won the Tour de France. But if they have not seen those numbers, they need to start switching the tactics around, because the first 9 stages leave everything open to possibility because we do not get into the big mountains. In fact, we do not get into the big mountains until stage 12 when the riders hit Eau de Camp, which means for us fans sitting on the Chesterfield, it's going to be a remarkable 11 stages and 12 stages of the Tour de France until they finish Eau de Camp before we start really knowing exactly who has the best form. So the organizers had done a fantastic job of giving us classic-like stages, sprint stages, individual time trial stages, semi-mountain stages, but no stages where Tadej Pogačar can really put devastating time into everyone if all 6 riders on the first page are on fine form. So, again, let's go deeper into Visma Lease Bike, where we know Jonas, we know Wout, we know Simon Yates. Now let's talk about the American rider Jorgensen, because he might be their best rider. It could be possible that Jorgensen is riding that type of level. I don't see it happening, but we know Jorgensen is, of all the riders right now, of the 8 riders from Visma Lease Bike, he is the one rider who has been steady throughout the 25 season. And if you want to back it up to January of 2024, he has been steady since 24 and into 25, where his form has always delivered consistency throughout the last season and a half before the 25 Tour de France starts. So Jorgensen is a steady rider, which tells me that, okay, he cannot win the 25 Tour de France, but he can win stages. Now, let's go back into the 25 Dauphiné, where I said Visma Lease Bike should have used Jorgensen, Ben Toulet, Sepp Kuss to go up the road and try to win individual stages as the moment you saw Tadej Pogačar on fine form. They should have used them differently on stage 6, and certainly by stage 7 and 8, Jorgensen should have had free rein to go for stage victories when it was clear that Jonas did not have the type of form that Tadej Pogačar had. So, we go into 25 Tour de France. Jorgensen, I believe, if Jonas is not showing spectacular form, and remember, we don't know if he has spectacular form until we get into the Eau de Camp stage. So that means I'm using Jorgensen. I'm trying to use Simon Yates if an opportunity appears. It might appear like we saw the Tour de France when they were finishing up in the Basque Country, and Simon Yates and Adam Yates went to the line together. He got beat by his brother from UAE Team Emirates, but that happens. But he had the chance of winning the stage. So I'm racing much like we saw that year's Tour de France, where Simon Yates has the possibility and the green light to get up the road and go with any rider that's not a first-page GC rider. He can't go up the road with Remco. He cannot go up the road with Primoz Roglic, and you never pull with Tadej Pogacar. Even if you're Jonas Vingegaard, you do not pull with Tadej Pogacar like he did on stage 1 at Dauphiné. Catastrophic tactical mistake that he made there. But if I'm Simon Yates and I'm the director sportif there, I'm letting Simon Yates go up the road with any rider that's not one of those 3 riders from the first page, because he could put pressure later on UAE team members to do something. Now, do I want him to go up the road with a rider like Almeida? I think I'd take the risk. I think I would put Simon Yates up against Almeida, although at the moment, if you said Almeida is the better rider because he starts looking at his season so far where he's won Romandy, just got done winning Tour of Swiss, that's true, but Simon Yates just got done winning the Giro. So I'm comfortable with Simon Yates going up the road with Almeida, but if I'm anybody else from Visma Lease Bike, I don't send anybody up the road with Almeida, because Almeida is a dangerous top of second page rider. Almeida is, but Simon Yates is up there right with him. There's no doubt about it. That's why he's a 2-time Grand Tour winner. So Visma Lease Bike have a lot of questions. If Jonas Vingegaard's not on the great form, though, and they race 100% for him, like we saw at Dauphiné, they might not win anything. If Wout Van Aert's form does not come up to what we saw in earlier seasons, especially when we compare it to 2022, if he's still racing at the form we saw at the Giro, I don't think he can beat riders here at the Tour de France, because this is the cream of the cream, and he's going to be well marked here at the 25 Tour de France. And of course, he's going to have his nemesis, that's Mathieu van der Poel, who we saw at Dauphiné was riding something fantastic. Did he win a stage? No, he didn't. But anytime a rider, a classic rider like Mathieu van der Poel, can put on the show and display a force that we saw throughout 8 stages of Dauphiné, you know he's coming on good form. And let me remind you, Mathieu van der Poel had a fracture to his wrist from a mountain bike accident just weeks before the Dauphiné started, and still arrived with that spectacular form for Dauphiné. So I would expect to see even better form out of Mathieu van der Poel, which means if Wout Van Aert has not brought his level up, it's going to be very difficult for Wout Van Aert to win a stage of the Tour de France when he has to battle against Mathieu van der Poel and he doesn't have the climbing legs that we've seen in earlier Tour de France seasons before. That means he can't get rid of Mathieu van der Poel, which means he's always going to have someone with the speed and someone with the power that Mathieu van der Poel has if it's a classic-like course. And the first 9 stages are littered with classic-like courses here. Okay, one other rider I want to talk about, the American rider Sepp Kuss. He has been missing in action. There's no doubt about it. Since his win at the Vuelta a España in 2023, the rider from the USA, riding for Visma Lease Bike, has not been the same. We go back to that Dauphiné in 2025, just weeks ago, and we know that Sepp Kuss' form has gotten a little bit better, where he finished top 15 on the general classification, but was still suffering even from the breakaway riders when he was in the late breaks, in the late mountain stages of Dauphiné. So can we see the American rider's form come back to where he was the super domestique of the 23 season, where he helped Visma Lease Bike win the Giro with, of course, Primoz Roglic, win the Tour de France with Jonas Vingegaard, and win the Vuelta a España himself there in the 23 season, where he had remarkable form all the way throughout the 23 season. We have not seen that, but we are interested in seeing it. So if the American can come up, if, of course, Jonas Vingegaard can come up, if Wout Van Aert's form can come up, we can see an absolute dominant Visma Lease Bike. But if these 3 riders do not come up, their hopes will rest on Simon Yates, the 25 Giro d'Italia winner, hoping that his form has come up even higher since that race in May has finished. Otherwise, Visma Lease Bike might walk out of the 25 Tour de France with no victories whatsoever. Like and subscribe, guys. 9 days to the 25 Tour de France. I'll see you on the next edition of Beyond the Coverage real soon.